rev up your engines. Today I'm going to talk about 5 used cars that you should never buy if you value your money and your sanity. Now, to begin with, I'm talking about normal cars that normal people will be buying used. I'm not talking about luxury cars like Range Rovers that I tell nobody ever to buy a used Range Rover. I'm talking about normal cars that average people would buy. And over the years, I hate it when I have my own customers not know any better and buy one of these horrible cars and then have nothing but problems with them. Now, the first car I advise you not to buy is a 2014 Mini. Now, Minis are really a bad combination. You have the expensive parts of a BMW made in England. The Germans, of course, are known for high technology that's very expensive to repair when it breaks, and the English are known for cars that just flat out break. Now, with my own customers who bought Minis, I've seen engines blow. I've seen electrical wiring short out because they use too thin of a gauge of wire to save money, and then it overheats, and then the wiring connectors all start to short out, and sometimes even the wires themselves start to touch because the plastic coating melts, and then they short out when the coating melts and the copper touches copper. So as cute as they may look, stay away from buying a used Mini. Now, the next car not to buy used is the 2015 Volkswagen Beetle. Now, I talked about Beetles before. The old ones in the 50s and 60s were great air-cooled, cheap machines to get you from here to there and last a long time. But the new Beetles, that's another story entirely. I've had customers with new Beetles have to put in new automatic transmissions. That costs $5,000–$6,000 and up, have air conditioning and electrical problems. It's a good idea to stay away from buying a used Beetle these days, unless it's an old one from the 60s, because they're high technology and high cost of parts, completely against what the original Beetle was, makes them cars that cost a lot to fix, and they tend to break a lot. A lot of plastic parts in them are really cheap and they crack and break. All of my customers that bought them, they were all dissatisfied in the end. None of them were really happy. Now, the next used car to stay away from is the 2013 Chevy Spark. Now, the Chevy Spark is a subcompact car, one of the larger subcompacts. They're extremely poorly made vehicles. There are so many better made ones, like the Toyotas or the Hondas. There'd be no reason for you to buy a used Chevy Spark. In my own customers' cars who bought them, I saw excessive oil consumption. Sometimes the engine would just go out entirely and stop running and had to be replaced. And this was with people who changed the oil and filter. It's not like somebody who just drives it and never changes the oil. They just weren't all that well built. I'll give you a comparison. Years ago, I had a customer who had a Toyota, and he brought it to me because it had stopped running. And it was a 2-year-old vehicle, had 100,000 miles on it. I checked it out and said, oh, it needed a fuel pump to put a fuel pump on, but I said, man, your engine, it's all oily and dirty. It's leaking all over the place. What's going on? This is a Toyota. And he said, well, you know, I drive so many miles as a salesman, I never changed the oil in this Toyota. Now, it had 100,000 miles in it, and he never changed the oil. But the car had ran that long until the fuel pump just happened to have gone out. So even though he had never changed the oil in 100,000 miles, the Toyota was still going. Well, I got customers with these Chevys that, hey, they change their oil regularly, and they burn oil like mad anyway, even though they were being changed. And aside from that, they're rattle buckets, they rattle like mad, they're very poorly constructed. Stay away from the Chevy Spark. You want a subcompact? Hey, get a Toyota or a Honda. They're gonna last tons longer. Now, the next used car not to buy is the 2014 Mazda Cx-9. I had a customer buy one used. His wife liked it because it was zippy and they thought it looked cool. And yeah, I gotta admit, Mazdas look cool, but that's only on the outside. They made the mistake of buying a used one. Had 100,000 miles on it. About 2 weeks later, the engine started going out. It was running poorly. I started checking it out. I said, we're gonna have to rebuild the engine. The cams and everything are just coming apart. Now, there's so many little SUVs to choose from. There'd be no reason to buy one of these Mazdas. They have problems with the windows not staying up, even though they're not that old of a car. They have interior problems. Hey, there is such a large amount of good medium-sized SUVs out there, there's really no reason to buy this Mazda. And the odd thing that I always found out about Mazda was, man, their replacement parts can be super expensive. It's kind of crazy, but over the years, even the last 30 years, when I work on a Mazda, the parts can be 4 or 5 times what they are for an equivalent Toyota or a Honda. And if you're buying a used one, hey, things are going to break. You don't want a car that has expensive parts when they do break down. Part of the problem in the past anyways was that they made a lot of models and they didn't sell that many of each one, so there wasn't much of an aftermarket. Like with a Toyota or a Honda, I could get good aftermarket parts. With the Mazda, it was always either try a used one from a junkyard or go to the dealer and pay $500 for something that was $100 for a Toyota or a Honda. So whatever used car you're looking at, take a look into the parts availability and costs in the aftermarket for that particular model. Because if yours doesn't have much of an aftermarket and you're stuck with buying expensive dealer-only parts, hey, my suggestion is look at a different model of used car. Now, the last vehicle I advise you never to buy used is the 2013 Jeep Compass. Now, Chrysler's certainly not known for quality over the years. The Jeep Compass was basically their attempt to make a cheaper Jeep that would cost less so they could try to sell more to more people. If you ask me, they went too cheap. Their trim is very cheap. The interior has a tendency of falling apart. The dashes will crack in the sun after a short period of time. They just went too cheap on these things to try to keep the price down a little so they could try to sell more of them. I had a customer with one of these things. When they were driving, taking a corner, the car turned off and the wheel locked up. This is on a vehicle that had 17,000 miles on it. And then when they took it to the dealer, of course it was under warranty, they said they couldn't find anything wrong with it. Well, there's my customer worrying that, oh, what if that happens again? I take a corner and the steering wheel locks up and the vehicle turns off. That's dangerous. So they got rid of the thing. They said, ooh, I don't want to be driving this thing around anymore. So my warning is, don't get in his position. Don't ever buy one of these things. He bought it new. Certainly don't buy a used one. Now, when I was a kid, Jeeps were made by Willys Overland. They were solid little vehicles. I mean, they used them in World War II. They went all over the place, and some of those are still running. But since Chrysler's taken over and then Fiat took over Chrysler, hey, the quality just is not there. Jeep has been living off a name for decades as far as I'm concerned. If you want to get a Jeep, hey, get a refurbished one from the 60s or 70s. Those are solid built vehicles. Take the Jeep Renegade, the one they advertise. That's basically a 4-wheel drive Fiat Panda. They made those for a really long time, but they're just little bitty things. They have nothing to do with actual Jeeps. But now they're selling it as a Jeep. And people think, oh, I got a Jeep. No, you basically got a Fiat Panda. Sometimes people just keep trying to suck more money out of a name. They try to get blood from a stone. And as far as I'm concerned, that's what Chrysler Fiat is doing. They're just using the name Jeep and sticking it on stuff that has no historical relation to Jeep at all. They just put the name on a Fiat and call it a Jeep. So now you know 5 used cars not to buy. And yes, there's plenty more out there, but certainly stay away from these 5 if you value your money. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.